Hey, what's going on, guys? So, chapter 1001 of One Piece, entitled The Battle of Monsters on Onigashima, just came out. We're still in quadruple digits, which, should be obvious, but it's still kind of surreal considering that, for what, 20 years, the series has been in triple digit chapters. But I guess this is the new norm, and I doubt we're getting to quintuple digits, so this is probably where the series is going to end. Um, but yeah, as the title may suggest, we're picking up right where we left off last chapter on the roof of Onigashima, and we are going to be spending the entire chapter there. It is pretty much 90% action chapter. A lot of actually really good action this chapter, with a bit of clarity on some things and also a bit of comedy. Uh, Starting out the chapter, like I said, right where he left off, Kaido basically confirms, which was pretty much a dead giveaway given his facial expression last chapter, but he confirms that Luffy's punch did in fact damage him. And the other four people on the roof, the other four supernovas, Zoro, Kid, Killer, and Law, all comment on the fact that Luffy has learned new haki and that it's able to damage Kaido with a physical blow. Um, And right on the second page, we get probably what's going to become very popular panel. Kaido looks up toward Luffy, and basically, as he's looking at him, figures appear behind him, and he's like, "Do you really think that you're on their caliber?" And it's like images of Whitebeard, Odin, Shanks, Rocks, and Roger, all like behind Luffy in a little montage, which, well, for one thing, it's interesting to see who Kaido regards as someone who can stand up to him, because that's what's happening here. Is like he's expressing that Luffy is now someone that is actually a threat, or at least accusing him of trying to be someone that is a threat to Kaido when he believes that in reality he isn't. Um, but yeah, the interesting inclusion here is definitely Rocks, because obviously of the five or six if you want to include Luffy, Rocks is the only bad guy here, and it's not. And obviously there isn't supposed to be like a misconception that like he's inheriting Rocks' will or anything. It's probably just a consideration from Kaido's point of view, who are the people that he most respects and believes who could beat him. But immediately after that, we get Thunder Bagua again for the second time from Kaido. Yamato used it a while ago, but pretty much an exact replica of the panel way back in 923, something like that, when Kaido first hit Luffy with Thunder Bagua, and this time he does not get one shot, and in fact it looks like the damage he took was actually pretty minimal. But as cool as that is, the big takeaway here is the fact that Luffy says he was using observation haki, or well, more specifically, he was using future sight to see into the future. He foresaw that attack, and we even get like a little panel where he can it like zooms in on his eyes beforehand, where you can tell even if it didn't like explicitly say afterwards that he was probably using future sight. But he says that Kaido was too fast for him to dodge, which, another indicator that Kaido really is at a crazy level of physical strength. But other than that, what's also interesting is the fact that that's kind of like soft confirmation that he is very comfortable with using observation haki, or future sight specifically. Basically all the time he's been accustomed to using it like subconsciously, and the only reason that he didn't avoid the very same attack in the instance back in Act 1 of Wano would be likely because he was not in the right mental state. Obviously Katakuri said back in Whole Cake that you have to very much be concentrated and stoic to be able to concentrate enough on your future sight to be able to use it, which Luffy was not in his first interaction with Kaido. And directly after that, we get Big Mom trying to attack Luffy just after he got hit by the Thunder Bagua. And Zoro comes in and cuts Prometheus, claiming that he has stolen Kinemon's Foxfire style. In the official Viz translation, he says that he stole it. I'm going to assume that that means he was able to master it on his own without like asking Kinemon. I don't think that like he sat down with Kinemon and had him teach him how to do it. That's very much the impression I got. But either way, it probably doesn't really matter that much. Right after that, Kaido again tries to attack Luffy, and Law shambles him out of the way. Right in front of him, where we get our little bit of comedy for the thing. Basically, he starts out by saying that he planned to move the samurai, Kinemon and the others down the floor before Luffy said it. And that, he shouldn't have said it because now Law looks like Luffy's subordinate. Which leads into Kid, mocking Law. And, basically calling them both losers. And in the background, we see Big Mom, Prometheus more precisely, firing 3 fireballs at each of them. And just a little tidbit, I think this is the first time we've seen all 3 of them lined up like this since, despite them all being on Wano, I think this is the first time we've seen them all lined up like this since Sabari, which is really funny to see, and it's really nice. It's like juxtaposed against that too, because that was very much a serious scene back then, and now it's played up for comedy. As the 3 fireballs are hurtling at them, one apiece, they decide to play chicken to decide which one is the loser, as Kid pointed out. And we get the kabuki face. Supposedly it's like a stereotypical face in kabuki plays. I've only seen that once, so that might be very much wrong, but it's the same face that Robin, Frankie, Usopp all made way back in, I believe it was the very end of Act 1. Robin and Usopp made it again when they were trying to get on the boat, and they pretended that Brook was haunting them. But yeah, supposedly this is like a stereotypical like face of kabuki plays. Obviously, kabuki plays, if you're not familiar, are a classical Japanese style of play that Wano is very much based off of, particularly the 5-act structure. And there's been a lot of like references to those type of plays dotted throughout it. And I saw in one place, this is again why I'm saying it might not necessarily be the case, but that face is like a common trope in those style of plays, which would very much be an explanation to why it's popped up so much. Because that was my first reaction when I first saw this. I thought, maybe Oda just really likes drawing the face, but apparently that's not the case. It's actually like a very stylized trope, like the sash, the kimono sash being removed that we saw with Sanji back in 997, 998, I believe. That was also a common kabuki trope. But yeah, this is one of the very few instances where I would say I actually like laughed out loud by a bit of One Piece. Like One Piece is very much a funny series, but it's never like laugh out loud kind of funny. It's a very different kind, and I definitely laughed at this because you think of Law in particular and how stoic he is. You wouldn't necessarily think he'd be the type to make this type of face or fall into like a childish game of chicken against 2 Emperors of the Sea. And Zoro very much calls them out on it in the next panel as they proceed to get hit in the face by the fireball. Speaking of Zoro, he pulls out the sash and puts it on his head for the first time since Dressrosa, I believe. against his fight against Pika, and that might actually be the second time he's used it the entire New World, if I'm not mistaken. Actually, he might have used it against that one swordsman in what's it called, Fishman Island, but I'm not positive on that. He definitely used it against Pika though. And we get small interaction between him and Killer. He recognizes Killer's laugh and knows he's Hitakiri Kamazo. And Killer claims that if he had been using his actual weapons, his Punishers, back then, the outcome would have been very different. I'm not quite sure how that would how true that would have been. But yeah, I was always thinking about that. Back when that happened, I was thinking about the fact that he didn't actually have his weapons of choice. So I was curious how that would play out differently, because he was obviously somewhat handicapped. I thought maybe, scythes were just about the same for him, but he has outright, confirmed that it does make a difference for him. Very much in the same way that during that fight, having one less sword very much hindered Zoro. And once he got that third one, he pretty much wiped the floor with Killer. But yeah, they proceed to both hit Kaido, which does very little damage. I don't know if this was purposeful, but it looks very much similar to the panel back in the Return to Sabati when Zoro and Sanji both one-shot the Pacifista. I don't know if that was just a coincidence or if that was intentional, but it does look very much the same with Zoro in the bottom right cutting him and Killer doing like a flip over the head. Just like Sanji did back then. Again, don't know if that's intentional or if it's just a coincidence, but if that is intentional, it definitely is a good display of how far Zoro has come in the New World era alone. But yeah, that does pretty much no damage. Zoro comments that he needs to master Enma a bit more. So, which is sort of pseudo-confirming that Enma is sort of like a mini power-up in its own. Because I assume that once it's giving the impression that once he masters it, it'll make him stronger, which is, that's fine. It's a little. So the only reason I'm commenting on it is it's a bit unusual for Zoro, because I very much feel like the fact that Zoro's swordsmanship has been increasing, and then he gains new weapons to coincide with his new skill to keep up with him. But this is very much the opposite case, where it seems like he's getting a weapon that is better than his current strength, and he has to build up to that to be able to use it effectively. So it's kind of pushing him to get stronger at the same time. And back to the three captains. They both decide to attack Kaido simultaneously. Kid busting out his punk rotten, this time making a giant mech type thing. And Luffy just goes back into Gear 4th and doing a basic Kongun. And Law uses tact. And which tact is an interesting choice there, because he comments on the fact that he was going to go straight inside the body to damage him internally, which is pretty much the only way you can actually hurt Kaido. Basically, that's what Rio has confirmed, or Advanced Armament Hockey. But which should mean that he uses tact, which doesn't have that effect. So I'm curious about why that is. But supposedly his gamma knife was supposed to injure you from the inside. Well, not supposedly, it did injure you from the inside. We saw that with Doflamingo, that he had to repair his organs afterwards with the strings. So Law should, in theory, have a way of actually being able to damage Kaido. And Yusa's Kid actually claims that he supposedly has a way of damaging Kaido here. He crushes him in between, his giant mech fists. Other than doing a normal physical blow, which is, it's nice to see them trying to get creative to figure out new ways that could potentially damage Kaido there. because obviously just straight up normal physical blows won't work. So he's like, oh, maybe crushing you could have an impact. But it, spoiler alert, it does not really that much have an impact. And Kaido goes back into his dragon form, giving us the last 2-page spread of the chapter, a very nice one, might I add, with both Kaido in his dragon form and Big Mom looming over the 5 supernovas that are currently on the roof. And what's interesting about this, and the fact that I didn't really think about before, is that the 2 emperors state basically that whoever wins this fight is going to come that much closer to being king of the pirates, because no matter who wins, they both win something. Because you got to remember, Luffy and the Alliance have a lot of strong members that Kaido would like to get his hands on, because his whole shtick is defeating other people and breaking, just basically breaking them into submission, making them work for them. We saw that obviously. Good examples would be Hawkins or I guess Killer somewhat, but Killer was more Orochi's henchman. But also we saw a lot of the gifters claim that they were once used to be captains of their own respective crews. Sasuke and Who's Who were once their own captains. And basically so the whole, Kaido's whole thing is, breaking people's wills and, assimilating them into their crew. And Big Mom points out the fact that, oh, you probably have poneglyphs that I want, which is true. Right now, Luffy and the Straw Hat Pirates should be the only ones that actually have the Zou poneglyph, which I assume none of them. I assume no one else would have that. Maybe Shanks could have it. I don't see how he would get his hands on it. Actually, he was apprentice with. Never mind. He probably does have it, or at least knows about it, since he was an apprentice on Roger's crew, and he was there when they went to Zou to go get it. I don't know if he had. That's a tough one. I don't know if he would have it though. He's very much in a weird place where I don't know how hard he's trying to be the king of the pirates. Especially with his he's very much, it seems like he's trying to maintain the balance of the world more so than go toward his own ambitions. So I would assume, obviously, since obviously Straw Hat's got a poneglyph on Zou, and each of the other 2 emperors, Kaido and Big Mom respectively, both also had a red poneglyph. So I'm assuming that it's a safe assumption to say that Shanks will either have or know the location of the last one, and that it might be on Elbaf or something. Because many people assume that Shanks will probably be on Elbaf, myself included. That is, if Big Mom and Kaido both go down here. Kaido's definitely going down. I don't think we're leaving Wano without Kaido going down. But if Big Mom doesn't, and I don't see how that would play out, but it's possible that Big Mom becomes the villain for Elbaf, since her backstory obviously has ties to Elbaf. But I'm very much more so in the camp that she will go down in Wano alongside with Kaido. And other than that, that's all I have to say on the chapter. The chapter cover was a nice little picture of Jinbei vibing on some jellyfish, but other than that, that's all I really have to say. A really great action chapter. It's nice to see that instead of, all this hype for chapter 1000, and that chapter 1000 was such a great chapter, that we're keeping up that level of quality. We've plateaued, so to say. We're not dipping back down, and it's not that the chapters before chapter 1000 were bad, but it's nice to see that we're keeping up the same quality of action and hype in these chapters going forward. But that being said, that was chapter 1001, Battle of Monsters on Onigashima. Yeah, see ya.